For this video, we're going to do both a classic tween and a motion tween. A classic tween is the old motion tween. So they kind of revamped it and has some different controls using motion tween versus classic tween. So in this one, you're going to use them both just so you can see the difference. So in Animate, I'm going to create a new document, and I'm just going to stick with HD, frame rate 24 frames per second. And we have our document. Depending on how you like yours, there's different workspaces up here. I use Essentials. There's other ones you can use. It's switching classic with your timeline on top. I like all of my programs to basically look the same, and I'm just used to the timeline being on the bottom, but it's just an option. So, okay, I'm going to first draw a backdrop. So I'm going to name this background, and I'm going to change my stage color, and I'm going to draw a ground. So I'm going to turn the stroke off, click none, and I'm going to pick a color. That's kind of dark, so let me change that. Okay, whatever. And I'm going to lock it. Oh, not yet. This video is going to be 60 frames long, so that's about 2.5 seconds. So I'm going to go to frame 60, right-click, and say Insert Frame. We haven't done that yet, but you can see all that does is extend the amount of time that keyframe 1 is visible. Could I insert a new keyframe? Yes, you could, and nobody would know or be able to tell a difference. It's just whenever your timeline starts to get more complicated with layers and keyframes, usually when there's a problem, you can identify it by putting your playhead on a keyframe. That's usually where the issue is. So just inserting a frame kind of keeps things simple. So now I can lock it because I'm not going to change it. And I'm going to add 2 new layers. Remember, it looks like a little plus. I'm going to name one, classic, and I'm going to name the other motion. I'm going to hide the motion layer because I don't need it yet. Click on the classic layer so you know you're working on the correct layer, and we're just going to draw a circle. It's going to be another ball. So choose a color, hold down Shift, click and drag. And if you look at your timeline, the default is that it makes it the same length of your project. That's fine because the ball is going to be bouncing the entire time. So in order to do a motion tween or a classic tween, it needs to be a symbol. Right now it's a shape. You know it's a shape because there's lots of little dots on it when you select it. To make it a symbol, right-click and choose Convert to Symbol. I'm going to name it Classic Ball. I'm going to choose a graphic, make sure the registration is in the center, and click OK. So there we go. What I'm going to do now is go to the end and right click and say insert keyframe. Remember that duplicates the previous. And I'm going to say I want it to end over here. Okay, so hit enter to play it. That's what we've got. So I'm going to go in between here. I like to keep things kind of even, so let's go to frame 12, insert a keyframe, and I'm going to move it down here. Go to frame 24. If you need to move it like I did, see right now it's telling me it's on frame 11, not that big of a deal. One frame you usually can't tell a difference, but if you need to move a keyframe, watch when I click and drag, it does this. Moving things can be a little tricky, so I have to click it once to select it, it turns blue, and then I can click it again and move it to frame 12. So now I'm going to go to frame 24, right click, insert keyframe, and I'm going to move it up. Let's go to frame 36, same thing, insert keyframe, frame 48, insert keyframe, now it's going to be up. Alright, so let's hit enter and play it. Again, you can use onion skinning if you want. It looks like these two circles. And if I change the span, I think what I want is to move this one a little bit. Okay. Alright, so now I'm ready to add my tween. So I'm going to right click a frame in between my keyframes and say create classic tween for all of these. Alright, so let's go back to the beginning and hit enter. And that's what we've got. Looks a little bit unnatural. You can play with ease on there if you want to. And if you click somewhere on your tween, it shows up in your properties panel. So click on classic, ease out. When you look at this, where it is curved is where it's going to be the fastest. Let's try that. So I'm going to double click it to activate it. You see that? Alright, let me try the next one. So that's sign, ease out. I think this one would be the same, right? Because this is where it's falling back down. Ease out. Let's do this one as well. Alright, so where it's going back in the air, let's try that on both of these as well. I'm feeling that one today. All right, enter. I think that's, is it a little bit unnatural? Yes. I could play with the eases a little bit more, but that's the basics of the classic tween.